Oh, good morning, afternoon, and evening, folks.
Hi, Drummond.
How you doing, Nikki?
All good? How are you?
Yeah, well, it's not raining cats and dogs here today, so it's a little bit. But yesterday was pouring like there was no, like the skies were, like it was an atmospheric river, as they say. We have a lot of those in Seattle.
It looks like you're in a computer museum or something, like a really long hall with old computers.
So this, if I lean over, this gentleman here is Nathan Schneider, who
Oh yeah, I know
this
Nathan.
you know Nathan.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this is his computer media lab in or just media lab, I think they call it, in at the University of Colorado Boulder. And this fellow here next to him is the guy who runs it for him. And
Cool.
he gave me a quick tour when I visited him last May, and I, he just um, insisted that it was something. If he was going to understand what he why he taught what he taught there, that I would have to go, and it was just absolutely fascinating. We didn't get to run anything because we didn't have very long, but and there's another room too, but this is the big one. And oh my God, it's everything like the whole history of media.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So it
digital
really is
media.
like a museum. Okay.
It is a museum.
Oh,
It's a like a miniature version of the Computer History Museum where we hold Internet Identity Workshop every or have for 40 times. The first one was in the Berkeley Club, in Berkeley, California, but ever since then it's been uh, the Computer History Museum, and I've never, and that's the next one will be the 41st time visiting there. I've never had time to go through the Computer History Museum because IW is always so um, all-consuming. I'll put it that way. All right, I'm going to share my screen here, uh, and it's I'm remarking to folks that used to that Zoom keeps changing things, and my share button is no longer uh, green as it always used to be. It's so weird. I think that's the right. Let me see if I got the right window. Yes. Okay, good. I'll arrange my others here. Well, that's bizarre. Now the background, I mean, Zoom is constantly updating things. Now the background to the my participants tab is black instead of white, which is going to make for a different kind of screenshot. Um, we'll just live with it.
You aren't in a dark mode or something accidentally, are you?
I don't think so. I mean,
Yeah, not that
nothing
I know that there is one.
exactly, and certainly nothing that I did that yeah, suddenly everything is. I wonder if there's a Zoom preference, but I don't have time to screw around with it right now. So I'm going to get arrange windows so we can get going here. All right, yeah, it's 4 minutes after, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. He's over here. All right, welcome everybody to the March 25th meeting, Decentralized Trust Graph Working Group, a joint working group of Trust RIP and the Decentralized Identity Foundation. So members of either of those are welcome here. And as always, the first thing we do is share our antitrust policy notice. That's what we operate under at both of these organizations. Um, is there any new member that would like to do an introduction? And if so, feel free to either raise your hand or put something in the chat, or you can, as always, I'll put this in the we have a bio page, and you can stick a little blurb on there, and it's open to write on and learn about the other folks that are part of our work here. Um, otherwise, wait a minute, I just went to the wrong window. What window did I go to? That was strange. Hang on. I think I hit the, no, that wasn't the right place. Am I sharing the right window? Yes. My, oh, sorry. There's windows bouncing around. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any hands up or anything else. So a quick review of the agenda. We are, besides all our task force reports, and we now have 5 of them, some of which should be very fast. Then Martina is going to be reporting on, is she here? Oh yeah, she is, good. We'll report on her mural board with interaction architecture. And then we have 2 meaty topics. Brendan is going to talk about a discussion thread. And before I start taking notes, since all the links are in this document, I'm just going to put a link to the notes document. If you open that up, you'll have links to all of these links that we'll be talking about. We'll also put them in the chat as we get to them. But Brendan's going to talk about opt-in reporting to trust communities, and then if we have time, we'll tackle another fascinating topic about R cards and personas, should they be linked. So, all right, before we dive into any other additions or revisions to the agenda. All right, and if not, any announcements that folks want to share before we get going about any activities or things that you think the full group should know about? Other than IW is coming up in roughly a month.
Hey, this is Steve Vitka. I am going to be working on a new paper for Quai about using Bayesian analysis to construct uh, actual mathematical trusts. In other words, if and how transitive trusts will work. So if I trust you, Drummond, and then you trust Adam, and you have a certain trust from 0 to 1 for Adam, how do I combine, say, my indirect trust of Adam through you and all my other peers to create a passive sort of estimate of how much I should trust Adam? So I will be doing a paper on that, and anyone else who is interested in that topic, please give me your thoughts.
Steve, what's the name of that paper going to be?
I don't know. I just decided to do it yesterday. I have no idea.
Okay, well, give me a.
But yeah, I will. We'll call it, Bayesian Trust Network. There you go. Bayesian Trust Network. There you go.
Bayesian, and remind me, the spelling of Bayesian is
Bayesian is Bayesian.
ESIAN. No wonder I can't spell it.
And it's basically just using the scientific process, essentially,
Yeah.
evidentiary value and so forth to, come up with trust value. So there you go.
Ah, very cool. All right. And do feel free, to post that in the Discord too, if you want feedback there.
Okay,
All right.
thanks. I'm sure Sankershan will have something to say. Okay.
Thinkershed usually does. He's our most prolific author in the whole area. Okay, cool. Great. Any other announcements? Yep. Oh, okay, just as I said, IW is coming up here soon. And if anyone's not aware, I will put a link to that. That's how you get information about that conference in Mountain View. All right, action items. Actually, neither of these is done yet. I need to get to with Nikki about arranging a meeting with the credentials task force. Anyway, I'll get on that. I have talked to Dr. Sanjam Garg, but we had something else that consumed the whole conversation, so I haven't followed up on that. And I know I actually have this is the ZK, I should say the Ethereum Foundation ZKID. But I am going to be following up with that because they are interested in that topic. Okay. So on to our task force reports, and over to you, Nikki.
Oh, hi. Yes, we didn't meet this week because we're on a fortnightly cadence, and so I just want to make some progress with the credentials task force. I don't think a whole task force meeting is initially required. I'd love is maybe a one-on-one with someone just to sense check what's there before and ensure that I'm correctly understanding where they're up to and just kind of evaluate how useful it is because obviously it's the result of an AI process.
Excellent.
Guided obviously by our persona and using using components, but so I'd love a bit of a sense check.
Good. Is there anyone, like Jeff, perhaps, or Martina? I'm happy to do that because I'm very active on the Credentials Task Force too. But anyone else who wants to join us on that, uh, feel free to let me know or let Nikki know.
Yeah, sure. And then we can just if we just have a quick review together and then I did try and add all of the documents which include the persona, the risk register, the user stories, etc. to GitHub. I tried to add them as files, but GitHub wouldn't allow me to do it. It would unable to commit.
Is that if
It's the
that's
story of my life. No,
if
um,
if that's a permissions issue, ping me on Signal because we
I think it's probably user error. It's not designed for that. I mean, but I did try it a couple of ways, including like one file at a time, ensuring it was within the limit. Um, and maybe it's just a question of putting it in a different format or putting it in the wiki or something like that. I just need a bit of guidance
right. Uh,
on what's going to be the most digestible form and most useful form because it's
right.
currently in the G drive, which a bunch of folk can't access.
Yeah, exactly. And the repo would make that more accessible. Okay, that's the second thing. You can ping me on Signal, and we can figure
Okay,
out
I'll
if it's
sort
if
that out with you.
yeah, if it's a
Thank
permissions
you,
thing or
Drummond.
yeah, we'll work through it. It's nice being part of Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. We're getting excellent support from them for taking care of these things fairly quickly. All right, thanks, Nikki. Okay, over the Credentials Task Force, and we have made some progress there. Uh, Jeff, I don't know if you want to share anything about our progress on the template, or I can.
Yeah, maybe why don't you go ahead, Drummond? Because I think it's really just a question of getting
Sure.
the format of what sections are going to be in there. So the template, just real quick, is up in place. So it just needs to be architected a bit more, and then it can be used by whoever needs it.
Bingo. Okay, let me. Oops. Oh, I see. I still was getting a notice there. All right. So what we did is over here in the repo we had set up for the trust overview template. We set up a work plan. We're going to be following roughly this structure of IETF specs. The previous template created about 3 years ago was based on the ISO format, but we're going to go with a more common ITF format. And so we agreed on that. Jeff and Martina and I working together on that. We're going to be using SpecUpT, and Jeff's already done the work to set up the markdown files that we'll be using. And now we're at stage 3, where we're going to be filling those out with necessary boilerplate materials. Jeff's already actually set up the SpecUpT instance, so all we have to do now is fill in the boilerplate and then we'll do a quick round review, and we'll be ready to we'll document the process, and we'll be ready to start cranking out specs that will use this template. So thank you, Jeff and Martina, for that work. It's going to, and then we can get into the process of actually taking what is the different contributions, especially version 03, which I'll stick in for anyone who's still in TDG v03. Anyone who's wondering what is the current state of the schema definitions, that is it. After great work from Brendan Alberto. Okay, in the Trust As Protocols Task Force, that repo has been set up here, or Glenn Gore has created a homepage for it, but we're working on there's contribution permissions that he's run into. He's got to sign the CLA, which may be a matter of him not having the right account set up with us. So we're going to work through that one, and then we'll be ready to start into that. And he's also waiting for the specification template. So we'll get that going. And next up, R cards. We're going to talk about that with one of the special topics below. And agent names, we didn't do anything this past week. So that takes us over to the meat of our meetings, starting with Martina. Do you want to go ahead and share, Martina?
Yeah, sure. I just made it back home. So I'm still setting up everything. So be a little bit patient with me, please.
Sure. If
to share. No, it works.
Okay.
So good.
No problem.
Just let me see.
Yes, you did mention you had a long train ride before you got back tonight. So
okay, can you see my screen? Still
yeah.
small, I know, but you see what I see. Okay.
Yes.
So just a very brief recap. There is not that much to add. I know I should not start a presentation with that, but it's actually the case. So this is what I presented about 2 weeks ago, or exactly 2 weeks ago. I'm not going over the entire thing again. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can also check the recording of 2 weeks ago. Just very briefly, the idea here was that I show, let's say, an initial onboarding flow of Daniel Wright, the persona that was created by Nikki, who is not present in the decentralized trust graph yet, but wants to become present and actually has a clear goal to create his first community/VTC. So he enters here. What you see here is, I called it interaction architecture, because it's not just like the boxes and the lines between, but there is some sort of dynamic in it. For example, as I mentioned, the Daniel, he's a person, he's a living person. He's not a member. I have to change that. We discussed that 2 weeks ago. We won't call the person who is part of the decentralized trust graph a member. I also don't like people being part of like a graph. So we decided or discussed that in a first step, we would like to just say either they have a presence in the decentralized trust graph or not. But this one slipped. So this is going to be changed. It's work in progress, this architecture. So Daniel comes, he sets up his personal network manager. In the back, this creates like the counterpart in the cloud, because the personal network manager is on his mobile device. But we want to have something that is 7/24, more or less, as close to it as possible, active and working for Daniel. So this is the verifiable trust agent, the personal one. And this verifiable trust agent then creates a node in the graph, and this is then when Daniel gets a presence in the graph. In the next step, he creates a community network manager, and it's kind of the same game here. The community manager also has a counterpart in the cloud, which is the community VTA. And via that, the VTC can be created with Daniel as the first member, which gives him in the back then a membership credential. And yeah, that's it very, very roughly. As I mentioned, it's not I don't have the main slot here now. This is why I don't go into more details for now, but just to give a brief recap, I hope it was not too fast for the ones who weren't present 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, as I mentioned, just let me know. What I did in addition now, when I presented it 2 weeks ago, there was a story before that, kind of PowerPoint presentation walking through what Daniel is actually doing. This is missing here, and so I labeled kind of or described the numbers so that also people who weren't present then know what the numbers mean. And even us who were present after 2 weeks or so, it's kind of nice to have a description of what's going on with the numbers. There are some challenges, and this goes into how this Miro board is going to evolve further. For example, here Daniel first has the personal VTA, and at some point the community VTA. These are each 2 dots that are then connected with an edge via the credential. And so the question is, how does whatever component is involved in this know how to address those 2 nodes in order to know from where the connection or the edge has to be drawn. And clearly this should not be like the centralized version where every node is indexed. And so it's just an open question. There are some solutions clearly, but it's an open question to this community to see with what kind of suggestions we come up. So this is A1. A2 is a question about whether the flow should change. Currently, we have 2 distinct processes. One is to create a PNM, and then kind of a distinct one that people do not have to do because not everyone wants to create a VTC is to start the process of creating a VTC. There were some discussions about whether this should be possible via one app. So let's say we just have a PNM and with advanced settings, it turns into a CNM. One of the issues there is that the complexity becomes, well, it becomes more complex, especially if we consider that most likely the majority of people does not want to create his or her or their own VTC. So this functionality is not needed to them. And yeah, this is one reason why 2 different applications are favored. But it makes the entire process not really frictionless, right? So here the question, if there are any ideas floating around. And the last one, Brandon, I don't know whether you've seen my comment in GitHub. Currently, this is a result of information that I gathered from different workshops and group discussions, also this group. And then I realized that on GitHub, where you present or describe the different VCs, the membership credential is now a dot, not an edge, which kind of messes with this architecture, which is not a problem at all. But in fact, I think it's a great point to further discuss whether it really should be a dot or an edge, or yeah. So I would appreciate, especially your insight there on GitHub. And as an outlook, there are more questions following. The questions are put in here. There really should be taken as a point to trigger further discussions, because this here is really here to be challenged. So tear it apart, challenge it, question it in a benevolent, constructive way, please. But it's not meant to, everyone just nods and says, yeah, looks nice. It's here to visualize what you have so far, in which direction the different task forces are going, and to also identify any inconsistencies, any potential challenges, any ideas that pop up. So that's it from
Cool.
my side.
I put in the chat, you started a discussion in the Credentials Task Force about that first question you raised.
Yeah.
And so that I encourage, because we're only gonna make classics. We only make so much progress every week if all we do is, get together for 1 hour. So it's those discussions that help us move forward asynchronously. And I see 2 hands up, Brendan and then Riza. So go ahead, Brendan.
Thanks for this, Martina. No, I really I love your schematic, and it's so helpful to have a visual to kind of make sure we're all understanding things the same way. Just on your point about the membership credential, I think it might be, I think we're hoping for the same thing, and perhaps the languaging wasn't as clear. So a membership credential, like a relationship credential, should be an edge. So when it says it establishes a node, that was the intent to say by virtue of having a membership credential, you become a member of that trust community and are therefore a node. So it's sort of like an implied situation, but the membership credential itself is intended to be an edge. So I don't know if that helps. Can certainly try to clarify things. Is that kind of what you were hoping for?
Partially. I'm very happy to hear that on one side. The other side is currently it looks like when you have like the Genesis VTC, so you come in and you create your first VTC/community VTA. The things that are connected with each other are the community VTA and the personal VTA. And this is then like 2 different nodes compared to what you just explained. Yeah, but let's discuss this. I mean, I think these are exactly the discussions that are needed and that I like. But
Perfect.
do you have anything else to add on that? To that?
Yeah.
Riza is next. Go ahead.
Great. So let me push back a bit. I think the purity of a decentralized trust fabric, a decentralized trust graph, is that it is local, that the information is kept locally, not centrally. So you're correct there. But it reflects, it's highly subjective. So it's every individual person's view of their neighbors and their community and so on. We also have a notion, at least within Quai, of trust decay, that the impression that you had of someone decays over time, and so you can't rely on a trust score that you ascribed to someone some years ago still being valid now. And my concern about a community or a trust level based on being a member of a community, it's somehow problematic, and it exposes the trust graph to bad actors that would become part of the community just for the purpose of getting that level of trust, but you really don't know them. Like I'm running an organization of 1,000 members. I don't know everybody now. When it was a couple of hundred, I think I knew everybody. But now I've got folks, I go through the list, I think, who was that? And am I going to give them the same trust score as I give someone that's been a member and I've been working through, like I see on here, Brian Ragazzi, Steve Vitka, and so on, that are members, and I trust them. And so we need to be careful about a community credential. It could be misused. So the guiding principles is local, it's highly subjective, it should decay over time. And I think if we just keep those as our guiding principles and just question um, any new credential innovation that we come across and see does it conform to that? So I don't want to after the fact put in these guiding principles, but those are the guiding principles that I'm directing our trust graph on.
I
Okay.
mean, I think we can resolve these conflicts. I don't think that they are
Did you have your hand
innately
up?
opposed to each
Sorry.
other.
Okay.
Huh?
No, I mean, I thanks a lot for your input. I absolutely agree with you. I just would like to clarify that here at the moment, at least, we're just talking about the membership credential, which just
Yes.
confirms that a person belongs or is a member of a specific group. It does not have, it doesn't say anything about how trustworthy that
Yeah,
person
yeah,
is.
exactly. I put in my hand just to clarify a couple things.
And I think the next task, Drummond or Brandon, is kind of tapping into that a little bit, if
Well,
I'm not
maybe Brendan's
mistaken.
going to go into that. I just and yes, we're slightly over time on this, so I just want to quickly
Okay.
clarify two things. The edge that a verifiable membership creates is between the community node and the personal node of the person. We're talking about personal membership credential here. And all it does is create the edge. It does not have any score associated with it. Anything you want to annotate on top of that is a separate credential, right? So scoring, erosion, all those things, yes, but the other thing I want to, that is up to the community and the members. So for instance, your policy for operating, great example of the community, right? Quai, those would be the membership policies in Quai. And if you have a trust score, which Linux Foundation wants to have a trust score for open source projects, that's managed by that community according to their policies. We could have a good, rich, probably should have a good, rich discussion about that because it keeps coming up. But that's policy in that community related to that member, and also even visibility of what can you know about the members, which will take us right over to Brendan's topic, I think. That's a lead into that. So again, thank you so much, Martina. I will certainly comment and again, I encourage everyone to join the discussions to carry those on. But
Yeah,
now,
just briefly, I would like
yeah,
to thank all of you for the time that you give in this and for
well,
any potential future inputs. Thanks.
and thank you for the work on the interaction architecture. Brendan, over to you. I think I can get my hand down here and go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Just wanted to share what's hopefully a thought-provoking topic about information sharing. Are you seeing my slides right now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is coming up in the context of a demo that we're trying to do. So, we've been working very hard with you all to make sure that this model stays decentralized and is privacy preserving by default. But we have a situation where it's actually in the interest of the members and the community to share some information to allow some correlation to be made. And so, for example, consider like a professional organization of some type where there's value in knowing who's connected to whom, perhaps some history of past interactions, etc. And to have sort of a kind of a directory, where we can see what's going on together. So if you think of that use case as just one example, of course, reporting, analytics, there's many kinds of use cases. And so the question is how to do this with our model with integrity. So just wanted to raise some questions and put some ideas out there. So, private by default, but with ability to share with the trust community. So, by the way, I just want to scope everything I'm talking about is just sharing within a trust community. So, again, keeping that as a trust boundary. So, we're not talking about sharing between communities at this point. So, our system has strong privacy guarantees. But if we want to collaborate, we might want to share information. And I would say having an explicit mechanism for doing this will help to steer things in a productive way. rather than leaving it as something off to the side of like, oh, we need analytics, we need some data about what's happening, and folks just going off and coming up with something which might undermine, make the risk assessment team hair stand on end, right? So we want to be thoughtful about this from the beginning. So yeah, I mentioned this professional network idea. So I don't have the right answer. I'm just going to share some of the thinking that I had. How can we achieve something like this? We do have patterns about opt-in analytics and reporting. You ask people, you make it very clear. They can say yes or no. We want to protect the simplicity, integrity of our decentralized trust graph credentials. So hopefully not polluting them with lots of other stuff that doesn't need to be in there or could lead to undesirable correlation. So we already have something we're calling verifiable data structures for our cards, and maybe analytics is another form of verifiable data structure that is worth calling out, for this purpose. So one question, I just had a very brief kind of messaging conversation with Drummond about this, and the question came up, should this be linked to the user's membership DID, or should there be a separate reporting DID created, or maybe multiple reporting DIDs? And my current thinking is that if we let people pick and choose and rotate reporting DIDs, that's going to protect privacy and more use cases. If we link it directly to the user's membership DID, that's likely to lead to the potential for we lose the ability of users to be in charge of what they're choosing to report and have become correlatable. So I think a separate reporting DID would be more helpful. That could be rotated, changed by the user when they want to. Of course, we can also link to my terms. So the user could add some my terms kind of designation on their data that says this is only for use within this trust community. It should not be shared outside the trust community or other types of terms of use. And so then there's this question about how are we thinking about these verifiable data structures and how they fit into this kind of DTG system. So here's just this is my last slide, just trying to set the stage for discussion. So these are just some ideas. I'm sure you also have excellent ideas, and I'm not attached to these, but trying to protect user choice and protect privacy as much as possible. So the user sets their reporting DID, not the trust community, so that they can rotate it when they want to. They can attach my terms. They decide what to report. They can turn reporting on or off. They could, if we had a sophisticated system, maybe they can choose to suppress particular reports. All that could be determined by, particular situations. And of course, we can't enforce every trust community to do things the way we want them to do, but we can certainly describe the intent, which is that different reporting DIDs from the same user over time are not kept and correlated. That what if the user is reporting that they're not doing some kind of deep scraping and trying to interpret signals beyond what the user's intending, and certainly not trying to correlate with DIDs from other trust communities. So those are just some basic principles. As I think Drummond put in the chat, there is a discussion where we can continue this, but I would be interested in folks' thoughts. So just opening it, if you think that this is something worth adding to the model, if you see it differently, if you have thoughts on how it should be done, I would love to hear. Thank you.
Oh, that's a good ripe topic. I have a bunch of thoughts, but I want to see who else might want to. Hands are going up already. Good. Go ahead, Riza. You're on mute.
At my most eloquent when I'm on mute. This is reminiscent of the DRM schemas and structures. A two-layered structure of an entitlement would give you more versatility rather than having to manage your security by rotating the primary key that's protecting your asset. And so if you look at systems that are maybe 30 years old where they've had to resolve this problem. You've got an asset, you want to share it with 1,000 different people. You don't have a single a master key for the asset. Instead, you bind them through an entitlement. You grant entitlements and you revoke entitlements. And the rotation of the key on the major asset is something independent of the granting and revoking of entitlements. So I'm happy to talk more about that, but it's been documented heavily. It's in the DVB architecture, it's in the architecture of the Widevine DRM and many other digital rights management systems. That's how you know modern television is secured through this two-layered structure. Okay.
Uh, excellent. That's fascinating. Steve had his hand up, but I see it's down now. So, um, wow, this is a really fascinating topic. I had a little time to think about it since Brendan pinged me to ask about having it on the agenda. I'm going to at least raise what I'm going to reply in the discussion as I think about it, which is and it surprisingly, even though there was no correlation between these two topics, the one I'm about to talk to, you'll see the same pattern involved, which is the relationship of a DTG node to a verifiable data structure that is then whose purpose is to share data with another node. Okay. And we're about to talk about that and the relationship to our cards, which is a very straightforward, I think, use case we can all understand. But in this case, when Brendan brought it up and said, well, yeah, what about using a verifiable data structure for a different kind of data sharing, which is this, analytics? And my inclination was to go, oh, makes a lot of sense and should work the same way as we're about to discuss with our cards. Now, the interesting thing is the next discussion is about, well, should that R card be associated with a DID? And in this case, a persona DID, and what Brendan is proposing in this reporting DID, it's the same pattern. It's just now the purpose of the verifiable data structure, the VDS, is different, but still and I think it's implementing exactly what you said, Riza. It's keeping it's literally not just the key management, but the identifier, because we're using DIDs parallel. It does make a lot of sense. Now, I will point out the one fly in the ointment is, and I think if I think about it from the community management standpoint, you actually don't want, and correct me, Brendan, if I'm wrong here, if any user could come up with any set of reporting DIDs, then suddenly your members can do a Sybil attack on your reporting system, right? I can set up, I'm going to do 28 reporting DIDs, and if you don't know that those are actually my reporting DIDs, you have no way of knowing, oh, well, actually, I'm getting 28 reports from one person. So I have a hard time imagining that the community is not going to want to, even though it can be private to the community and the individual, what data is being reported. They still need to know that is a legitimate member, and I'm getting reports from that member. If there are multiple reports coming in of different kinds, that's fine, whatever. But still, I think the community is going to need to know or have the assurance it's getting reporting from one member, unless I'm misunderstanding something. So, thoughts about that?
I wonder, just to respond to that for a second, what if that was also a part of the governance discussion rather than the technical architecture discussion? Because in some communities, maybe privacy will be a higher goal, and they'll want to allow folks to generate, uh, as many reporting DIDs as they want for different reasons. But certainly others, I can see where there's higher levels of assurance needed, that, yeah, you would want different governance. Do you think it could be thought of that way, Drummond?
Yeah, absolutely. in fact, if we end up going in this direction, what we would do is similar to the other credentials, like a verifiable endorsement credential. We define the structure so that there's a standard way of doing it, and then the community decides the policy about, you know, what it requires. So, you know, do you need to verify it's associated with your membership or not? That would make sense to me anyway. Go ahead, Adam. You have your hand up.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a wisdom of the crowd, the crowd being um the community that's helping to generate these reporting dids, and also an external community that's maybe consuming um reporting dids. And yeah, so I think it definitely belongs in the governance and policy side of things for the community. And if, people can from the outside can look in the community and say, okay, well, this is the policy. These are how they expect these reporting dids to be used. I think having a multiplicity of reporting dids is fine, and having that flexibility is fine, and that policy can evolve over time. If they start to see that a certain type of reporting did is really useful, the policy can update to incorporate it. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we could take the entire time to continue because it gets into, well, what are all the kinds of reporting that you might want? And I know I'm not gonna, because I do want to get to the next topic. The thing I want to explore is, okay, one of the things for a long time we've recognized is the whole point of how much of your personal trust graph are you able to share with the community, or do you want to share with the community, or does the community want, how much value can you add by sharing some portion of your personal trust graph with a community? And I hadn't thought about using a VDS to control that, but it does make a lot of sense. So I think there's a very rich topic here. And so again, I'm going to point everyone to please put your thoughts in the discussion on that one. We've got the link to that in the chat. And I just put in the link to our final topic today, which is, again, it was just complete coincidence. And now I realize how closely related these two are, because I will share my screen just to show the discussion. Let's see, it's this one here. Okay, so this is, I'm just, putting up on the screen the discussion that I started. And by the way, I highly, Brendan and Martina both did the same thing without prompting, which is anytime you have a topic you want to bring up for, for discussion in our meetings, ideally start a discussion in one of the, we got 5 repos now, so it's going to be relevant to one of them. And if it's sort of more general about the graph, use the credentials repo, because that's the broadest one we have. Feel free to start a discussion, because not only does it make it easier, to just share about it, but then folks who have comments and everything, we can work asynchronously on that. So this and this one, it came out of a discussion Martina and I were having about the same question, which is sharing a persona and sharing an R card feel like, and you have the definitions right here that I pulled out of the glossary. They seem like very related actions, right? If a persona, you're sharing a particular, you're sharing a cryptographically verifiable identifier that allows someone else to know, oh, that's really you, or a particular persona of you that you're sharing with that person. Now, DIDs inherently, of course, are not human readable. So even if it literally is just a pseudonym, well, where is the pseudonym that another human would understand is, represented with that persona? I mean, you could auto-generate some kind of avatar or something, but in many cases, you're going to want to have that. So even if the associated human readable component of that, which is what our cards are for, even if all I had was a pseudonym name, it's still, you end up with this pairing, just like we proposed the use of our cards for sharing other information, whether it's contact information or other what information that you want to share with another node. And again, that can be with another individual, or of course it can be with a community. And knowing that community is one of the things they're there is to help enable data sharing. Now you get into this, okay, the R cards, a community may say, hey, can you share the following data with us? That can be a fairly rich R card. So R card architecture and how data elements that you store in your own VTA, for instance, as an individual, how they can be shared efficiently. That's why we have a R card spec and a separate task force for that. Um, anyway, so it then surfaced, well, should we basically maybe perhaps not make it a requirement, but suggest that the natural thing to do is an R card is, well, it can, if it goes all the way to architecture, we could simply say a persona, rather than needing a separate credential for it, an R card is shared with a persona, and any R card, R cards have persona dids. Persona dids have R cards. I guess it would be technically optional, but in that case, they would be directly linked, exactly as Brendan was just proposing that a reporting did and the associated VDS of the reporting, that controlled the reporting would be done, and that's effectively the discussion that I wanted to open up here. And so any thoughts about that? Okay, Brendan and then Nikki.
Actually, Nikki, you want to go first?
Sure. Just to clarify, is what you're suggesting is that they're one and the same, or that they need to go alongside each other? It's like a hard requirement.
I think what I'm suggesting is, again, I actually asked all of these options down here. What I'm suggesting is they're not one and the same, because one is a did and the other one is a verifiable data structure. Um, but my original assumption, starting early on with this, is that verifiable data structure could be shared independently of, for instance, setting up a relationship. So Nikki, you and I connect and we share VRCs. Now we have a relationship. And then I just choose the R cards that I want to share with you, and you do the same thing with me. Um, the only thing this would change would basically say, each of those R cards, if they're separate R cards, effectively represents some persona that I want to share with you. And
Mm,
the R card is essentially the human readable data I want to share, and the persona did is the identifier of okay, you know me in that context. It's the way that you can prove that relationship. So essentially, they're paired. That's what I'm proposing, is that
yeah,
they're
okay.
paired. And of course, it would always be, just as we've always proposed, the R card would be optional. But I realized again that the whole idea of, well, yeah, but how does the whole point of the R card to begin with is to provide human readable information. And even if you're just sharing a persona as a pseudonym, you probably need the R card to have nothing more than, in that case, the pseudonym that you're sharing. So someone knows, yeah, I know this person in this context uses the pseudonym. Anyway,
Okay.
does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Brendan.
Yeah, just to say, my intuition leans similar to what we were saying about the reporting dids, where I wouldn't enforce them to be linked, and that could be more of a governance decision for a trust community, so that you could have a persona did without an R card. And I also think you can have an R card attached to any kind of did in our system, an M did, an R did. I think there could be use cases for all of those. So I think it feels more like a governance issue to me.
Good, good point. Good point. Nico.
Yeah, tons of juice here. There's a lot of depth, and I think the duality is also pretty rich as well. I coming from the carry space, it this to me, this sort of association kind of reminds me of direct and indirect mode, right? So my mind actually goes to routing, right? And in this case, R cards is these sort of discrete introductions meant to be interpersonal, and then this persona is this sort of indirect. It's pseudonymous in this context, right? This sort of governance frame that we're projecting here, and so it could actually have a more utilitarian role. The only question I have is the mechanism how the self-updating actually occurs, which Drummond, I think you might you might agree also to me also has a self-resolving aspect, which uh, there's a lot of meat on the bone there too. But this is just what comes to mind.
Yes, it's definitely the trust test protocol that we will need to define in the trust test task force. So good point. Otto.
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic. I think it almost gets into like some of the capabilities of the DID method itself. At least that's how we solved it when I was at Privato at Ident3. What's like I have one art card that says I know Drummond, right? And that's persona 1. I have another art card that says maybe I know Brendan, and that's persona 2. And then let's say I have another persona that I'm exposing to a third person persona 3 uh, kind of identifier that I have. And I want to show that I know both Brendan and Drummond. But the way that I did that, at least the way we solved it back then, was to have a Merkle tree of these personas. And so to show that these two credentials that I have possession of, they are related to these other personas, but I'm not telling you which personas I exposed, right? So in revealing to this third person that I know both Drummond and Brendan, I'm not revealing which personas I used to create that relationship. So one way to solve it was like using like a Merkle tree type inclusion proof, where you can demonstrate possession of those other credentials. Could be one way to solve it, but I think yeah, it starts to get into some of these more kind of crypto tricks where you can kind of prove possession of credential without giving away too much. Could be one way to solve it.
Yeah,
Anyways.
that's a great point. And it takes us into the rich topic. There's another task force that we haven't created yet, but it's coming up. Of course, Otto, you and I discussed it. It's the one we know we've got on or that we are imminently going to need on ZKP because that's the other approach we've taken is, all right, what can you prove in zero knowledge about those set of credentials? And you're right, that's a perfect example of I can prove I know these two people without revealing what personas they have shared. Wow, if the privacy community really understood what we're doing here, they would I think they would jump up and down. I know we're just about done here, but I'll share if you can see. This is the book just released by Cindy Cohn. It's called Privacy's Defender. She's on a book tour for it, and so I last week went to see her here at Seattle's Town Hall. But it's the subtitle is My 30-Year Fight Against Digital Surveillance, and it was it was a great talk, fantastic talk, but the whole story she tells at the start of the book is about just the lawsuits they had to go through that EFF won to just get encryption to be declassified as a munition, right, as a weapon, so that things could be published about it on the internet. And so now we're at the other end of the spectrum where we're talking about everything being digitally signed and encrypted of the things we're talking about, and the level of privacy that you now, including persona management, that we're going to enable it's just and I got about 15 minutes to talk to her because we have a mutual friend, and I just described generally what we're doing, and and she was super interested. She was like, oh my God, I need to learn a lot more about this after the book tour is over. So I think we'll get together with her in May. All right. I know we're at time. Thank you for these two excellent discussions. And again, I'm going to do one last push. Please do join in the GitHub discussions and share your thoughts there because that's how we, work towards a consensus on these topics. Excellent. Again, thanks everyone. We will be our APAC call routinely has Sankarshan and I, but we're every so often others join. So if anyone on knows someone who should be on the APAC call, please tell them to pop in. And we will talk to you all next week and see you on the discussions in the interim. Thanks.
Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.